Hello and welcome to another episode of TWiML Talk, the podcast where I interview interesting people doing interesting things in machine learning and artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Sam Charrington. How many of you remember my conversation with Josh Bloom from TWiML Talk number 5? Josh is the founder and CTO of startup Wise.io, which sought to apply AI to the challenge of providing customer support. In Josh's words,
what we do in our company at Wise.io is help customer support agents become more efficient at their work by suggesting answers of how they can respond to an incoming inquiry, by automatically triaging incoming inquiries or tickets, or emails, etc., that is getting them to the right person or the right group who's going to be the best at answering that question. And then in some cases, we will automatically respond to incoming inquiries. So when you write into an e-commerce site and say, my package didn't arrive, there's a growing chance that us or somebody else may be answering what looks like a bespoke question of yours with what looks like a bespoke answer.
Josh shared a ton of insight into how to build AI-powered products in that show, including gems like this one.
Yeah, so there's definitely this separation of concerns, which again is both an organizational one and then is also a computational one, to the level where we think we often talk about what we call the organizational API of who within this stack is the customer of who. And so, for instance, the people who are the sort of core ML and algorithms folks in the company are working in C++ and surfacing the great results back into a Python layer. Their customer is the data science team. The customer of the data science team is the people who are working on our architecture, who have to maintain this scalable, robust infrastructure. And their customers are the people working in the middleware, and their customers are the ones who are in the UI. And so each of them have a set of contracts of what it is that each part of that stack is looking for, and how, in fact, they're supposed to engage with each other. Having the data science team be able to push stuff into production without having to be on the ops side of things, nor have to think about the architecture, has really freed us up in great ways, I think, to innovate.
Since my conversation with Josh, he sold Wise.io to GE, and now he's working to quote-unquote AI all the things at that massive company. So, why the trip down memory lane? Well, it's because Josh is just one of the many great speakers who will be joining me at the Future of Data Summit, May 15th and 16th at the Interop ITX conference in Las Vegas. Josh will be there to elaborate on his experience building AI products and platforms in what will surely be an amazing presentation. A few other speakers I've recently added to the agenda include Zachary Hanif, who's part of a SWAT team of sorts at Capital One that helps various parts of the business incorporate machine learning and AI into their projects. Sri Kanan Ramachandran, who will be joining us to talk about marketing in the age of AI, and how her team uses machine learning to drive top-line growth at telecom giant Level 3 Communications. Shree's a big fan of the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to her talk. And Jennifer Prenke, who leads data science and data strategy teams at Walmart Labs. She'll be speaking on the challenges of integrating data from multiple silos to support machine learning and AI applications for multi-channel retail. And after their presentations, I'll be leading a Q&A and panel discussion with the three of them on bringing AI to the enterprise. This will be the time to get your questions answered. Now, the Future of Data Summit is approaching quickly, but it's not too late for you to join me. To register for the summit using my 20% off discount code, visit twimlai.com/interop. Of course, if you have any questions about the summit, feel free to reach out to me via the contact page on twimlai.com. Okay, now let's get to today's show. Today we bring you the second of 3 interviews we did backstage from the NYU FutureLabs AI Summit, this time with Ruchir Puri. Ruchir is an IBM Fellow and the Chief Architect at IBM Watson. I caught up with Ruchir after his talk on Engineering the Future of AI for Business. Our conversation focused on cognition and reasoning, and we explored what these concepts represent, how enterprises really want to consume them, and how IBM Watson seeks to deliver them. Enjoy the show. All right, everyone. So I'm here with Ruchir Puri, an IBM Fellow and Chief Architect with IBM Watson. Ruchir just came off from giving his presentation here at the FutureLabs AI Summit. Welcome, Ruchir.
Thank you.
Why don't we start with you giving us a little bit of a view into your background?
So, I have a background pretty much. I started at the level of all the way down to circuits and physics, and over time I've been just traveling that staircase in terms of abstraction levels, going up the abstraction level, and I'm traveled from circuits to systems to algorithms and software to cloud to AI for last 5 years or so, and all along I've worked on algorithms for all kind of applications, including algorithms for designing chips to algorithms for designing systems to making them smarter to now at algorithms for Watson, and my job is to make Watson less shiny, more real.
Nice. So that must give you a unique perspective because in many ways it seems like AI is starting at that top level of abstraction and then working its way down to the chip level.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point, and I think I would consider myself lucky to be able to gather the experience I have gathered over past 2.5 decades or so, I would say. Where I started actually down and traveled up, where interestingly the details at the bottom are quite overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And as you move up, you are abstracting things. And as you move down, many people shy away from those details. So yes, it does give you a unique perspective into a common systems and a software and a cloud view into this actually. And by systems, I just don't mean a board or a chip. I really mean system in its entirety, which is a living, breathing cloud. So
that's great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the presentation you just gave for those who weren't able to attend? What did you talk about?
So I gave a talk on engineering the future of AI, and I basically took the folks through a journey, which is what is the art of possible. And if you really do it right, where are we today? And I differentiated, the coolness of AI to what problems we really need to solve, where, the enterprises are struggling, where a lot of problems need to be solved. It's not just about finding cats and dogs. It's really about, finding, I have a tax problem, right. Go solve it for me.
Right. It's popular to beat up on cats and dogs nowadays.
Yeah. So, that's, so I took, and then I really talked about, where the fallacies of some of the current techniques may be and where we really need to go.
Okay. So what, in your perspective, are some of those real enterprise problems? What are folks really trying to accomplish with this technology?
So I think folks in the enterprise, first of all, they really are trying to solve problems of large data in terms of, I've got massive number of documents, varying formats of documents, varying modalities of data as well. I could have audio data, I could have video data, I could have data available in all kind of different formats, from PDFs to docs to everything else actually that's available, including scanned JPEG images of documents and other things I may be scanning. Go address it for me, and then to be able to have what I call conversational discovery. I call that whole domain what I would say conversational discovery.
Which means what?
Don't just discover things for me. And I talked about this in the presentation I just gave as well. cognition is not just about I ask you a question and then you give me an answer. If you knew the answer, you gave me an answer. That's called search, actually. Cognition is more about I ask you a question. You actually come back and say, oh, I've figured out 5 pieces of that puzzle. I don't know 5 pieces of the puzzle that I really need to answer that question. I'm going to summarize that in the form of a question back to you and try to get the answer out of you so that you can guide me. That's really what cognition is about. It's not about, okay, how many, above what limit I need to pay what tax. Yeah, it's there in the document. It's really about, finding the pieces of puzzle and posing it back to me in a way and getting me engaged in a conversation so that you can get the answer back. That's what I call. So discovery is an enterprise application. And then conversational discovery make it more consumerized, actually. So it's really about amalgamation of consumers and enterprises. Consumer experience with enterprise problems.
Interesting. I like the way you put that, conversational discovery. I have been talking to people and asking people about what I call intelligence design. Like, how do we design experiences in light of artificial intelligence? And one thing that strikes me is that it needs to be at least very interdisciplinary. And so when you talk about conversational discovery, it makes me think that we've accomplished a lot in terms of how do we make information and data discoverable interactively in the business intelligence world, like ad hoc, query discovery, things like that. Are you at IBM, or do you see any place people that are working to pull all these threads together to make conversational discovery possible?
Yeah, so we've got actually a application. We have a whole bunch of actually sort of APIs available for developers to go and write their applications against. Discovery is one of the more fundamental APIs we have available. So we classify our APIs into 3 categories. One is conversation-based, one is discovery-based, and the third one is what I call signal, actually, which is speech, text, all this stuff, actually, and images is part of it as well. And yes, we at Watson have been working very hard towards bringing all these together. Conversation, along with speech, along with discovery, with reasoning, actually, as well. So it's not about just, information retrieval. It's not information retrieval. It's about reasoning also, which is where conversational discovery with natural speech becomes very powerful. So that's exactly what we've been working towards. We've got pieces of it already there out in the marketplace. Like discovery is there in the marketplace, and other things we are working towards as we bring more and more reasoning techniques into discovery and conversation on top of it.
Reasoning is a very high-level concept. How do you make that more concrete for people? What actually are you doing that you classify as reasoning?
So let me give an example of reasoning, actually. So obviously for academic folks, there are 3 kinds of reasoning: abductive, inductive, and I'm not going to bore you with that nomenclature, but let's assume for the time being, actually, that you're trying to again. I'm going to go back to the example I gave. I got 5 pieces of the puzzle. Figuring out there are 10 pieces of the puzzle itself is reasoning.
Right.
You asked me a question. Figuring out 10 pieces of the puzzle itself is reasoning. Figuring out I've got 5 of them figured out. That's another level of reasoning. And then combining the 5 unknowns into a summarization and posing that question back is actually part of summarization, not necessarily reasoning. And then when you pose a question back to me, going and figuring out that those satisfy that 5 pieces or not, the answer you gave back to me, that is reasoning as well, actually.
Okay.
And then there is obviously, mathematical reasoning that we can have as well.
So you're primarily delivering Watson via APIs, presumably this reasoning element as well. What does the API look like? You're not just have some corpus of data and say, okay, go reason and tell me back things. Are you directing it? What's the
so reasoning
experience?
is really built as part of many of the APIs internally itself. So for example, discovery and knowledge graph as we move forward, and querying on knowledge graphs and reasoning on knowledge graphs as well is delivered as part of the capability of discovery. So it's not that we are exposing reasoning in its abstract form. It's integrated as part of the APIs that we are delivering, specifically in discovery, specifically in things like compare and comply. I showed examples of obligations and controls. That's reasoning itself as well. Figuring out what are my obligations may not be reasoning. However, figuring out what obligations and what controls map with each other is actually certainly a form of reasoning as well. So these are all integrated together, and we are bringing it out as very consumable APIs, which underneath actually use many reasoning techniques as we move forward.
Okay. And do you think reasoning as a service is a worthwhile goal? Is that separate and distinct in your mind from AGI as it maybe an intermediate step even, or is that not really the direction you're headed?
So at least in terms of, so certainly, and I'm going to take just a step back just for a minute, and we are working towards bringing out learning as a service actually. So whether it is deep learning or machine learning, Watson machine learning is already available actually on our APIs. So learning as a service, and it's certainly, I could argue, certainly we are watching the consumer behavior very, very closely. Actually, however, it really will depend on. It's hard for me to see right now whether somebody will consume reasoning in abstraction. It's very hard to figure out, actually. And it's really hard for me to pinpoint that. If that is, what will that be? Reason in abstraction. Right. So I would say currently no. However, this area is evolving very fast, and we are keeping our mind open with respect to if some things emerge. People are actually, obviously we are working on data science workbench as well that we are exposing, and part of those algorithms we can expose, reasoning algorithms we can expose too. So obviously for data scientists we can have capabilities which get exposed directly in terms of, hey, I want that reasoning algorithm and that reasoning algorithm. But to me, other than for PhDs in this area, it's hard for me to see how consumers actually, and by consumers I really mean enterprise consumers as well, how they just abstractly consume reasoning. But again, it's a fast moving area.
So if you were to lay out 1, 2, 3 general directions for the machine learning as a service APIs, where are they headed? What should we expect to see from those that you offer, as well as the field as a whole?
So machine learning as a service specifically. So many things that are available in the marketplace today is what I call AMIs actually. You can go to Amazon or Google and you can download something and, you can spin up a VM and go install it and play to your heart's content. However, to me, where things are really headed is you bring me your data. You don't have to tell me whether you want to choose Cafe or TensorFlow or, bring me your data. By the way, data is gold. Right. In this area, data is gold. If I gave you my data, I gave you my life effectively. And I've given you my life already. You guide me regarding, don't ask me what neural network you want. I don't know the head and tail of neural network as a consumer, neither do I want to know. I run my business. Don't ask me what kind of neural network would you like. Would you like 2 GPUs or 4 GPUs? Say, what do I care? Go figure it out. And so it really is heading for what I would call machine learning for machine learning. Go figure out on top of machine learning an entire layer which is smart enough, which takes data and then, figures everything out and gives me that insight back. That's where things are heading. Don't ask me, do you want to use logistic regression or naive Bayes? What do I care, really? I'll say, what did you ask me? So that's where things are heading, which is more on AI for AI or machine learning for machine learning. Because the lower layer can get complex actually, and you should not be exposing that to the end consumers. Obviously, there is a narrow percentage of people, let's say 5% or so, who are PhDs in either deep learning or data science area, who do want to actually tinker with that. But majority of the people, they really don't want to. They want to actually give you the data and really get insights out of it. You need to make it seamless for them. You don't even need to tell them, I've got GPUs. Yeah, so if it helps them, go use it. If it doesn't, don't use it, actually.
Are you getting any pushback, in fact, from people who don't want to give you the data?
Actually, certainly, as I described, we've got 3 levels of data sources, actually, I would say, where we are enriching that data and deriving insights out of that. Public, domain, private. And we seamlessly sort of weave across that. Public being, I already talked about, which is, Wikipedia kind of data. Domain being, you are in finance industry or insurance industry, you got knowledge base for that. And then private is your data, which we don't share with anybody. Neither do we share the insights of that with anybody as well. And as we explain, in fact, one of our strengths at IBM Watson is really are specifically this clarity on data. We will not use your data specifically to go and benefit others. Your data is your data. You hold the insights for that. And our CEO and David Kenny, who's the senior VP of Watson, has been very explicit in saying this. So I would say one of our differentiators actually at Watson is specifically the clarity of the data policy, and specifically the weaving across this seamlessly with Watson.
Okay, great. So to wrap things up, do you have maybe 3 takeaways from your presentation that you would like to lead folks with, or were there any calls to action that you laid out?
So I would really say, first of all, these are really interesting times. AI has made tremendous progress in last decade or so, more recently in the last 5 years. And businesses are hungry for how to really consume this wave of breakthroughs that we've been actually getting. The problem is really not about obviously being able to search, but be able to reason over the data as well, build models, and make it easy to consume actually, and to get to the next level of cognition, which I call actually conversational discovery, with reasoning or interaction with insight. There are many names of it, but really I think it's very interesting times for businesses, because at the lower layers the complexity is quite large. You need to be able to abstract that complexity from the users and be able to give them insights. They are giving you the data, and that's all they need to give you. You should actually really insulate this from them and be able to give them the benefit of conversational discovery as we move forward. So
great. Well, great. Thank you very much for being on the show. It was great to meet you and to get your perspectives on these things.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone, that's our show for today. Once again, thanks so much for listening and for your continued support. Don't forget to share your favorite quote from this show via the show notes page, Twitter, or our Facebook page. If you do, we'll be happy to send you one of our great laptop stickers. The notes for today's show will be up on TWiMLAI.com/talk/21, where you'll find links to Ruchir and the various resources we mentioned. And finally, please be sure to check out the Future of Data Summit. The updated agenda is posted at TWiMLAI.com/futureofdata, and you can visit TWiMLAI.com/interop for more information about registering. Thanks so much for listening, and catch you next time.